This is going to sound really bad when I first say it, but doom scrolling has become really unappealing and boring to me these days. And the reason that I say this sounds really bad is because intuitively thinking about it, if you are someone who doom scrolls a lot and you understand its addictive nature, you might be thinking to yourself, well, this guy can't even focus for 5 seconds on an Instagram reel or a TikTok. That's how bad his attention span has gotten. But no, that's not what's happened. Instead, what has happened is that I have essentially replaced what I was getting from doom scrolling with a much healthier alternative using this device here. This is an e-ink tablet sort of thing. You can call it an e-ink reading device, something like that. The one I specifically have is called the Supernote Nomad A6X2. And no, I'm not sponsored. I just genuinely love this device. And in this video, I want to go over how I used this device and used mostly the reading capability of the device, the Kindle, to replace my doom scrolling addiction. To understand this first, you first must understand why you doom scroll in the first place. What are we trying to get out of doom scrolling? What is the main purpose for quickly, habitually pulling out our phones and scrolling endlessly until we find something that makes us laugh or gives us anxiety or gives us FOMO or gives us some other sort of dopamine or chemical release in the brain? Well, the reason you keep coming back to it is, like I said, the addictive nature. The addictive nature of social media apps are designed like a slot machine. You don't know what you're going to get next. And that is the most appealing part of social media apps, the most enticing part of it, and particularly short form content, because it's very quick. By the time you've finished watching a 10-second reel, you can go on to the next one and you don't know what it's going to be. And that anticipation for something potentially funny or exciting coming up in the next reel or TikTok is the reason that you keep scrolling. The anticipation for a good reward. Now, why would this be boring or unappealing to me at this point? It's because what I require for feeling engaged and fulfilled with my day has evolved quite a bit, the more that I've evolved as a person. And this is the main thing you got to understand with replacing it. You can't just pick up one of these devices or start reading a book and expect your doom scrolling addiction to go away. It has to be paired with you actually changing as a person. So think about the times where you feel the most strong urges to doom scroll. I would bet that it's the times when you're trying to escape your reality the most. The times when you just want to shut your mind up. You don't want to think about anything. You just want to rot in bed and scroll endlessly and escape your problems. And doom scrolling provides a very easy, no hassle, no friction way to do that. But if you had nothing to escape from, if you genuinely enjoyed waking up in the morning and thinking about what it would be like to progress and do things that are genuinely fulfilling, you would find doom scrolling completely unappealing. I have done the work to create a life in which doing something that feels like junk food, because that's also what doom scrolling is it's temporarily satisfying your cravings for escaping high engagement, anticipation that leads to a reward, and it does so in a very addictive-like manner. That's why it's so comparable to junk food. It is the difference between someone who has a binge eating disorder with junk food and a person who is way more attracted to eating healthy foods because they genuinely like themselves and want to take care of themselves. If you did the work to heal your insecurities, or at least accept them, if you knew what it is you wanted in this life, and you had a strong purpose for becoming a better version of yourself, then you'd naturally want to do the things that lead to a strong sense of fulfillment and purpose that still provide the engagement and the anticipation and all the rewards that doom scrolling gives you, but in a much more healthy manner, like someone who is attracted to eating healthy foods is like. So if you don't do that type of work, then trying to pick up a book and replace it completely with doom scrolling, I don't think it's ever going to be permanent. And now I want to go over specifically the benefits that you experience when you start to replace your phone and picking up constantly with a book. And with enough time of consistently reading books, you'll realize just how much more entertaining, engaging, and satisfying reading a good book is. Particularly fiction is what we're going to talk about, because fiction is all about telling stories. It's all about connecting with characters, connecting with ideas. And that is the best source of a replacement for doom scrolling. Wrote some things down here. So first things are that books require sustained attention. They require you to actually use your mind. It results in this sort of immersion where you get the same sort of escape that you got from doom scrolling, except it is this complete escape. It is not an escape into social media, which usually is highlighting all the negativity in the world, and it only makes you more anxious because you're not doing all these things that people are doing on social media, or a negative news story just gets highlighted. It is complete immersion in a entirely different world. We all need a little bit of escapism sometimes. Some of us turn to video games, some of us turn to doom scrolling. Video games are a little bit healthier than doom scrolling, depending on how often you do it. And I would say, though, that books are probably one of the healthiest ways to escape, fiction books specifically. So instead of this like rapid fire, superficial social media, which lacks that richness or substance, like how do you feel after you scroll for a while? Do you feel like satisfied, like genuinely satisfied with what you just did? Is there like a sigh of relief when you put the phone down? No, but that's what you're going to experience when you decide to swap out the phone, when you're taking a dump, in your downtime, with a great book. There's also the sense of accomplishment. So doom scrolling does this thing where it tricks you into thinking you are putting in work for a reward. And people who, like I said, haven't done a lot of work in their personal lives to overcome trauma, insecurities, find a strong purpose, will be more attracted to short-term, very high stimulating, immediate gratification, as opposed to those who have done that work. And with books, there is a tangible sense of achievement because at the end of each chapter, you have finished something and you've progressed in a coherent story. On social media and doom scrolling specifically, there's no fucking story to what's going on. Every reel is new. It's something completely novel, something you don't know what's going to come next. But that lack of narrative is very unattractive. There's nothing to piece together. There's no story to follow. And what comes next comes more out of like, I just need to get this quick hit of laughter instead of I want to see what happens to this character, what sort of emotions they go through, what sort of story is going to unfold, and things that I didn't even expect to happen are going to happen. That's what you get, and that's a huge sense of accomplishment that reading good fiction specifically gives you, is you can tangibly sense the progress, and that is way more fulfilling. You know, when you do a somewhat difficult task that requires your full attention that you can't divert away from, and you finish that thing, doesn't that feel so much better than picking up your phone, scrolling, getting super stimulated, and then putting the phone down, and it's as if you just consumed an entire bag of potato chips? So that's a great part about fiction is this intrinsic reward for connecting ideas and actively building understanding. Intrinsically rewarding rather than the external quick-hitted fucking dopamine and shit like that. And also with that sense of accomplishment comes mental clarity, critical thinking, and concentration skills that you build up. You can actively feel yourself getting smarter and being able to connect your thoughts better and your emotions better. You develop more emotional intelligence. We're actually going to go into this deeper. It's really interesting. I feel since I've started really getting addicted to reading lately, I've been reading at least 30 minutes to an hour a day for a couple weeks now. Once I've really developed this habit, I can feel myself being able to read much faster. My thoughts are lighter, they're easier to access, they're easier to understand. When I speak, like how I'm speaking to the camera, it usually translates into better speech, better language, because I'm learning all these new words. I'm taking notes on the words that I don't know. And this sort of moving your eyes to see words and then constructing a world in your head that you have to, that the book demands of you to do, it's your own creation. And this is something I talked about in a main channel video. Your mom was right, it's that damn phone. Reading, though it seems it is consumption, reading fiction is an act of creation because it requires you to actively create a world within your mind and piece the story together and visualize what this author wrote down in your head. You have to create this world that the book demands of you to create. And that is an act of creation. And you're not creating anything when you're consuming social media. No sort of progress or accomplishment or creation is coming out of it. It feels vapid and empty and superficial, like I've been saying. And that's not appealing to me. That's really unappealing at this point in my life. So fiction it feels like brain food. And this emotional depth and connection through a story and relatable characters. It can be therapeutic. There's actually research to show, and I'm hoping that I can find it and put on screen here, that fiction improves our ability to understand other people's thoughts and feelings. These deeper emotional connections in the characters engages empathy and emotional intelligence. So once you start to feel like you're connecting with these characters, maybe they go through something similar to what you've experienced, then you start to internalize your experience and process it better yourself, because this author has given you the opportunity to do so from an outside perspective, that being the character. When you can connect with another fictional person is a fantastic thing. It's really fantastic. And I find myself, since I have been reading more fiction, that I view my entire real world as a story. I'm piecing things together as if they're part of an arc and talking in my mind as if I am in a story sometimes, especially after a long reading session. It's quite funny, but it also helps me because stories are the best way to understand ourselves and understand the world. Without storytelling, nothing would make sense. Nothing would have any sort of identity. If you want to understand your identity, become a better storyteller or read more stories about other people. And that's what reading allows you to do, specifically reading fiction. So when you ask yourself, what am I really trying to get out of this doom scrolling session? The escapism and the feeling of reward, that's the things you actually want. You don't want to watch this content that has no meaning, no narrative, no connections, requires no effort, doesn't bring more mental clarity, only less. But it artificially creates the idea that you're getting all of those things until afterwards you've completed your session and you realize you haven't really gotten any of that. Now, this device e-ink device. Why do I specifically say this device is the device that replaced my doom scrolling addiction? It's because it's very easy and convenient to load up things on here. Right now I'm reading the King Killer Chronicle series. I'm on the second book, Patrick Rothfuss. Incredible fantasy fiction book that I think everyone should read. I'll leave the link in the description to the first book if anyone wants to get into the series. On Kindle, you can see like how many minutes are left in each chapter at the bottom, and also the percent of the book that you're through already. So I'm at 86%. I think that visible, tangible progress that I can see replaces the feeling of the actual book and seeing where your bookmark is in the book as compared to where you started. It's a good way of replicating that. And the only reason that I think you would want to start with this maybe over a physical book is because of its convenience aspect. It's easy to carry around. You can load up tons of books on it, and you can see how many like minutes are left in the chapter and stuff like that. And that might be more, it might get you to commit to reading more than a physical book would. But after I finish this book, I'm going back to pretty much strictly physical for a lot of the reasons that I talked about in my most recent video that I put on my main channel, which is the subscription economy. I don't want to be tied to only digital products. Kindle can take away these books at any time from me. But if you're just starting out, I don't know, maybe an e-ink device like this, I'll leave the link in the description to this one, would be best for you. Either way, wherever you start, really the device is just reading a great book, preferably one that has a narrative, a plot, a story you can follow, which is almost always fiction. And knowing how many benefits there are and how much I've been into fiction for the past few years has inspired me to start writing my own novel. I am going to start writing my own novel, a fiction book. It's going to be a story that a lot of you guys I think will relate with, that will be heavily tied to my self-improvement videos. I'm kind of dubbing it as the world's first self-improvement fiction book to hopefully draw in more people who aren't usually exposed to or interested in reading fiction over nonfiction. And I'll have a lot more to say about that once I figure out how I want to market it or announce it to the general public. But that's it for this video, and I hope it helped.